It's exactly 12 years since Washington began what became the bloodiest battle in its invasion of Iraq. It took 2 months for the Pentagon to push insurgents out of the city of Fallujah, with hundreds of civilian victims becoming collateral damage. The controversy didn't end there. A warning, you may find these images disturbing. Following studies and reports from the ground, the World Health Organization claimed that rates of stillbirths and congenital defects across Iraq are consistent with or even lower than international estimates. Nevertheless, other studies have linked serious health issues to the use of depleted uranium weapons in both the 1991 and 2003 wars. Those weapons were designed to be, quote, armor busters. However, the US has reportedly used them on soft targets as well. Now, depleted uranium is toxic and radioactive, with growing calls to ban the use of such arms altogether. And in the autumn, one of the organizations backing the ban released its report on their use in Iraq.
Depleted uranium weapons have been controversial since their first major use in the 1991 Gulf War. Radioactive and chemically toxic depleted uranium use creates hotspots of persistent contamination that present a hazard to communities long after conflict ends, particularly for pregnant women as well as children. Civilians in Iraq are still facing exposure to depleted uranium from the conflict, with little meaningful work done to identify and clear contaminated sites.
We talked to Dr. Chris Busby, who has long studied what's been described as an epidemic of cancer and birth defects in Iraq, and particularly Fallujah. He's behind a major report on the issue and says the situation on the ground remains drastic years after the war ended.
The most interesting thing is that nothing has got any better. That in fact the level of congenital malformation, the level of ill health in the children as they are born is not improving, which means that whatever it was that happened long ago is still there in the genetic makeup of the people who live there. The problem with that study is it wasn't a study that was carried out at a hospital like ours. The study that was done by the WHO, which incidentally was a disgraceful study, it just looked at children whose parents said that they had congenital malformations. Well, on that basis, in fact, they found that they had a lower level of congenital malformations than the expected number, throughout the world, which should have led them to the idea that maybe the study wasn't working. We know it was exposure to uranium because we measured the uranium in one study. We spent a lot of money looking at the uranium levels in the hair of the parents of the children with congenital malformations. So there's no doubt about it being uranium. It's becoming clear now that uranium has very serious genetic qualities that weren't understood and are still not conceded by the authorities. The last people to concede it will be the Americans. The American military are the people who are most dependent upon it. They don't want to get rid of this magical weapon, and they're fighting tooth and nail, including scientifically, to try and show that there isn't this serious problem that there quite obviously is.